This is for the record. History is written by the victor. History is filled with liars. If he lives and we die, his truth becomes written and ours is lost. Shepherd will be a hero, because all you need to change the world is one good lie and a river of blood. He's about to complete the greatest trick a liar ever played on history. His truth will be the truth, but only if he lives and we die.
Ignore. Just refuse to publish any facts of African history that don't go along with our racial theories.
We need to create a religious and a scientific doctrine so that African slavery won't appear that bad after all.
What we need to do is flood the world with new African histories that contain our European perspectives only.
Start renaming people and places. Replace African names with Arabic and European names. This will disguise their true black identity.
Let's change the criteria for defining race. For example, 1 drop of Negro blood in America makes you a Negro, no matter how light the skin.
Yes, and when reporting ancient African history, reverse the standard. No matter how dark the skin, woolly the hair, or thick the lips, you don't have to be a Negro.
When black contribution to civilization is too obvious, let's find a way to attribute it to outside white influences.
When all the ancient historians contradict your theory, we'll just discredit them.
You brooding about me getting the best of you, huh?
Actually, I was thinking of that poor devil you fed to the dogs today, D'Artagnan. And I was wondering what Dumas would make of all this.
Come again.
Alexandre Dumas. He wrote The Three Musketeers.
Yes, of course, Doctor.
I figured you must be an admirer. You named your slave after his novel's lead character. Now, if Alexandre Dumas had been there today, I wonder what he would have made of it.
You doubt he'd approve, huh?
Yes, his approval would be a dubious proposition at best.
Soft-hearted Frenchie.
Alexandre Dumas is black.
All right. Shalom. Yahawah, Yahawashi, Barakatah. This is Elder Taza Dakba. I'm doing this quick hit for the brother Elder Ayathun's channel, GMS on air. And what I'm going to talk about very briefly is a situation among the Swedes. Now, the brother Elder Ayathun earlier in the week, he sent this article out to all the brothers. And the article is named Swedes Seethe Over Documentary Claiming Their Ancestors Were Dark-Skinned. Sputnik News, February 18th, 2019. This article came out. Now, there's a documentary that's about to hit the airwaves. I don't know exactly what day or when, but the documentary is going to show that the first Swedes were black people, and white people are in an uproar over this situation, because we've been told throughout our lives here in America that the Vikings, because the Norsemen, we've been told that the Norsemen were white people. You got white people that do murals of Vikings being white men with these big axes and this long blonde hair, and they have this hat on that has the horns coming out the hat and all that, and they like to paint themselves as some type of warrior type Vikings. Well, those warriors, or those Vikings, those Norsemen, were the ones who sailed and encountered the Native American Indians here in North America and established trade with them. Okay, they didn't come here and have war with the Native American Indians. They established trade with each other. The Vikings were also the ones who mapped out North Central South America, Canada. Okay, if you want to use a word called cartography, they were the ones who drew up what was known as, there's two sets of maps. There's something known as the famed Vinland map, and there's another set of maps known as the Peary-Reese maps. And Columbus, the devil that he is, had these maps in his possession. That's what's not told to us in history. He had access to Vatican archives, which they had those maps, early maps that the Vikings had drew up of Canada, North, Central, and South America. Okay, so Columbus coming over here in 1492 knew exactly where he was coming to, and he knew the people that were over here in the Americas were Israelites, because he had Hebrew interpreters with him when he came over. Now that's another story. Now getting back to the Vikings, or getting back to the early Swedes, back to this article. It says the first Swedes were dark-skinned hunters and collectors who moved to Scandinavia from the south at the end of the Ice Age. There they were quickly joined by another immigration wave, this time from the east, resulting in Stone Age Europe's most diverse population. A new documentary by the Sweden's national SVT broadcaster has claimed the first Swedes. A new documentary by the SVT national broadcaster has been met with critical reaction and backlash ahead of its airing. It hasn't even been aired yet. Now, I'm going to read here what a professor named Matthias Jacobson, a professor of genetics in Uppsala University and a researcher of the Atlas Project. This is what he says, which aims, the research he does maps the human genome. His research is on mapping the human genome. Now, what he says is this. He maps the genome of Sweden's early population. He stressed that unlike present-day Swedes, their ancestors had dark skin as a legacy of their African origin. Now, they always throw the word African in there, but the origin of these early Swedes was, guess what? Israelites. They weren't Africans, they were Israelites. Their look was quite similar to the people that at that time lived in today's Luxembourg and Spain and Germany. Now, he's going back into history. He's talking about the early Swedes look like the same people that were in Luxembourg and Spain and Germany back at that time. He's not talking about in this time, modern day. He's talking about back at that time. Those early Swedes look like the same people that was in Luxembourg, Spain, and Germany. Their look would be quite unusual today. Blue eyes with dark skin. Okay? Now, that's what the professor said, that the early Swedes would look like. I'm going to read the quote again. That would look like the people at that time that lived in Luxembourg, Spain, and Germany. Now, the people who lived in Luxembourg, Spain, and Germany back at those times, what did they look like? Now, some of you might say, oh, you black guys are crazy, especially those of you that's into the so-called whack conscious community, as we call it. Now you're gonna say the Vikings is black now. First you're saying the Europeans is black, because to you anything from Europe is white, which is a goddamn lie. But now I got some other irrefutable evidence. Benjamin Franklin, who was an inventor, he's the man that's on the $100 bill, right? We call him Franklins, right? Now, let me pull that up. It's hard to try to pull out information and just make it like 5 minutes. It's really hard to do that. But I'm just going to get to the point in this article. The name of Ben Franklin's article is called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind in 1751, is when he wrote this essay. Okay, and it's called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, 1751. Let me go to the bottom. Now remember what we just read in that article about the early Swedes being black, and that the professor said that the people in Luxembourg, Spain, and Germany at that time looked the same as the Swedes that were in Sweden at that time, the early Swedes. Now Benjamin Franklin says this. Paragraph, the very last paragraph, he says here, which leads me, as a matter of fact, let me start up a little bit above. He says here, and since detachments of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon supplied and increased so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers be suffered to swarm into our settlements, and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours? He's like, why should we let people from other countries come here and settle, and then they're going to establish their manners and their language instead of ours? Now he goes on to say, why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead? Notice he said to Germanize us, the English. He's talking about Germans at the time in 1751. Now watch what he goes on to say. He says here that Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, because they try to claim that they're the Anglo-Saxons, but the original Anglo-Saxons, the word Anglo-Saxon means angelic sons of Isaac. The angelic sons of Isaac are the Israelites. Now let me read on. It says, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion. Benjamin Franklin said that these people would Germanize us like we're Americanized right now. We're American citizens, so we're Americanized. We speak the English language, we into the football game, the basketball game, boxing, all right? So Ben Franklin said, why should we let these aliens, in other words, foreigners from Germany, come in here and Germanize us? They will not accept our language no more than they will be able to accept our skin color, which Benjamin Franklin's a so-called white man. So the people in Germany were what? Black. Now let me read on. He says here, because it's going to tie into the article I read about the early Swedes. Now, so I got to blow this up a little bit. Let me try to turn this around so I can get it a little bit bigger, man, because it's getting a little darker out here. Here we go. It says, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionately very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Now the word tawny means like a yellowish brown, a reddish brown, which would be like what you white people call copper tone. Because you white people that go to these salons, you get a tan and you look like more orangish brown than anything else. So that's a copper tone right there. And a light brown, a copper tone, or a yellowish brown is what the word tawny means. So it means that they're a person of color. It's not a so-called white person. I'm gonna read again. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. That's where you get, when we say high yellow, your high yellow ass, a light brown. Or the word tawny can mean like, you look at the coat of a lion, sandy brown, or how that lion has that nice light brown tinge or tan on his coat. He says all Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers. Who were the newcomers? You so-called white people. In other words, he's saying the Native Americans are what? Brown also. He didn't call them red people. That stigma of calling the Native Americans red people, that didn't exist during the early colonial times. That came later because Ben Franklin, this is 1751, when he was wrote this essay. So now I'm gonna read on. He said, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers. Who were the newcomers? You so-called white people. Wholly so. America was wholly so full of what? Brown people. People that were dark skinned and people who were tawny, right? And he says, and in Europe, the Spaniards, the Italians, the French, the Russians, and the Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion. Swarthy means they're black. So the early Swedes, like we read in that article about the Swedes were seething because a documentary is about to come out saying that the early Swedes were black and had blue eyes. White people over there is getting pissed off. But Benjamin Franklin in 1751 made this statement in an essay that was published 3 years later in 1754 and distributed everywhere.
Behold.
He's here. He's here. Mother! Father is here! The king, my lady. The king.
Your fate is set and you cannot escape it. How I've missed you, my son. One day this kingdom will be yours.
Thank you, Father. My king. I can feel now. I will avenge you, Father! I will save you, Mother! I will kill you, Fiona!
I will avenge you, Father. I will save you, Mother. I will kill you, Fiona.
Why would he stow away to such a hellish place?
To find what was stolen from me.
And what is that?
A kingdom.
You must choose between kindness for your kin or hate for your enemies.
Your strength breaks men's bones. I have the cunning to break their minds.
And night by night, we will carry out my pledge of vengeance.
I will avenge you, Father.
I will